Hey guys, welcome to Nullius, a mod overhaul for Factorio. I am currently in a playthrough of Nullius on my Let's Play channel, and I'm about to the point where I'm going to need to set up mining for this, for these massive patches. So I thought I'd check out some blueprints to see what we could do. Now, quick overview of the mining in Nullius. We have a ton of miners. The first miner we get is this small miner. It's like a burner miner. It only gets the 2x2, the ore in a 2x2 blueprint or footprint, excuse me, around the miners. The next tech we're able to unlock is this medium miner, which is 3x3, but it's the same deal with the footprint. It doesn't reach in over to the belt, unlike the 3x3 miner in Vanilla Factorio. So we're still left with the issue of how do we mine underneath the belt? Well, we have to deconstruct everything and put new miners down. It's not until actually the fourth science, purple science, that we unlock two new miners, small miner 2s and medium miner 2s. And the small miner 2, again, is the same deal. It's just a 2x2 footprint. It cannot reach across the belt. It's not until we get the medium miner 2s that can, just like the vanilla miners, those can reach one extra tile so that we can finally do something productive. So let's look at these three tech levels and look at some blueprints I've made. So first deal, small miner 1s. As compact as possible, so I use these undergrounds so that I can put the power poles over here instead of needing to leave a space between the miners. Pretty good. Obviously, it's not going to reach over into the belt, so we would have to deconstruct it and move it over to get those stripes that are going to form. All right, and the next tech level gives us the medium miners, so I have a blueprint for the same kind of deal, but again, same problem. We can't mine over the belts. All right, I have a blueprint for small miners, but you guessed it. It's pointless. Again, we can't reach over the belts. Might as well use the next blueprint that I have. And yeah, look at those massive, horrible gaps between it. Well, guess what? I don't need miners as compact as possible. Getting rid of the starting ores, yeah, make them compact so you can get rid of the starting ores. But once you unlock medium miner 2s, you're probably going to be reaching for an outpost here. Now, let's see what it would look like if I went to this giant patch of sandstone and put one belt all the way down. We can use max rate calculator to tell us if that would fill up an entire red belt, and it would. It would fill up an entire over two yellow belts. It would fill up an entire red belt even. So that's as many miners as I need. That's as compact as I need it, maybe I should say. All right, but let's see. Also in the mid game, we have this large miner, which reaches crazy far, 2 extra tiles. That's really nice because that lets me do this. Having even fewer miners, but still, I think that's pretty much exactly the rate at which we had when we just did the medium miners. So possibly useful, possibly not, because they are more than twice as expensive as the medium miners. All right. And you're like, well, okay, but what if we want it compact? All right, I made a blueprint just in case I want it compact. Just some nice standard mining here. Again, this is going to give too many ores for one belt to handle, so I'm not sure how useful that's going to be. All right, and then I have the large miners as well. Again, that's more than a blue belt. That's almost as much as the ridiculous belt 4 Nullius has that does, what is the belt 4 capacity? 75 items per second. 75, so that's Is that, I'm going to embarrass myself. Is that 6 yellow belts? I think that's 6 yellow belts. Nope, it's 5 yellow belts. Wait, what is it? Yeah, 5 yellow belts, excuse me. I knew I was going to embarrass myself there. All right, so the last thing I want to look at is if you're in the mid game and you wanted to get as much minerals out of this bad boy as possible, as quickly as possible, is there possibly a use for small miners? Because check this out. The small miners, let's say we had a 3x3 square of small miners. Obviously that won't work because you can't fit them on belts. Like, okay, the middle one. Yeah, just look at the middle one. There's nothing to do. But just imagine that we could. Compare that with a 2x2 of the medium miners. It covers the exact same amount of space, right? The small miners actually do, let's see, 6.2 sandstone a second versus 4.6 sandstone a second. The small miners actually do mine out faster than the medium miners, and certainly faster than the large ones, which the difference is even more pronounced here. We can just look at, let's see here. This is the same footprint. So 1 large miner, 1.7, 4 small miners, 2.7. So yes, the small miners are actually the fastest based on their footprint of any of the miners. So how could we possibly use that? Well, one idea I had, what if we put the small miners on one side of the belt and the large miners, or the medium miners, on the other side of the belt, or the large miners for that matter? How would that look? And in fact, yes, that is faster. The medium miners reach across the belt, so we don't have to worry about that. And this is faster than the standard belt I have here. So if we just look at a lane of that kind of standard belt versus the max rate, which I have 2 belts in my blueprint, but let's just look at 1 belt for now. 53.59 per second compared with just medium miners, 55.2. You're probably like, well, that's not a fair comparison because this lane is a little bigger. You might be right. But we are able to put these belts closer together. So not only will there be a little more ore on each belt, of course the belt's probably not going to be able to handle that throughput, but imagine it was infinite throughput or a small patch, even better. The belts will be closer together with this max rate arrangement, making this slightly superior to the simpler, more basic option. So I do have that blueprint as an option in my book. And I was really playing around with some other designs, other creative ways to use large, medium, and small miners all in one little tileable design. Like things like, that, you can imagine there's a lot of crazy possibilities here. But I couldn't figure out a way to make it tileable. Couldn't figure out a way to beat this rate for these mid-game miners. All right, so that's mid-game mining. Let's go on to the end-game mines. The final mining tech comes pretty darn late, 2 sciences after the electrical engineering, the 4th purple science that we get this large miner in. So it's not the green science, it's the physics science that comes after green science. And these miners are great. They do have more module slots. Each of them have 2 module slots. Oh, that's another thing I should have said earlier. All of these these second miners, small miner 2, medium miner 2, and large miner 2, those all just have one module slot. So there's not a huge advantage to doing more than one, or at least the small miners have a slight advantage because you could use more modules if you were to use only the small miners compared to the large or medium miners. Same thing here. These each have 2 module slots. All right. And also the footprint is exactly the same. So these small miner 3s can't reach across the belt to mine the ore there. The medium miners have the 1 extra tile distance, and the large has the same as before, 2 extra tiles. Okay, so it's going to be basically the same. For the sake of completion, I put in some small miners here. But yeah, I don't think anyone would ever want that. And then I have some medium miners. And some large miners. Exactly the same as before. I've just upgraded them, and I upgraded the belts as well. You'll probably want blue belts with these because it's not particularly close to being just 1 red belt. And then the large miners, those are a little slower actually, and we only need 19 of them per belt versus 31 per belt. So similar cost. I think the medium miners make the most sense. I'm not really sure if there's a reason to use large miners. I guess it wouldn't clutter up your inventory as much because you would need to carry around fewer of them. But other than that, I don't see a reason to use large miners as opposed to medium miners. Except you can do some cool things if you were trying to get the max rate possible. So we have this thing, which is exactly like the last blueprint I showed you guys, where you combine medium miners and small miners to get as much throughput as possible. And here's what we're going to do now. We are going to cover this sandstone patch and do some real comparison. Let's see, where's the... Okay, there's the... Oh, darn. It's sloppy. All right. How about we move this? Very good. Everything's still connected. Very good. Now I have some ways for us to test the throughput up here. We're going to put these into infinity chests that will dump everything, trash everything. So let's see what we're actually dealing with here. We could do the max rate, but of course it doesn't really work with the belts because these are filling up 14 belts and we only have 12, and this one isn't even being used. Is it being used at all? No, it's totally empty, isn't it? All right. So here's what we do. We go to our production statistics, and we can see we're getting about 47,000 sandstone per minute. 47 is the number to beat. Let's take that away, get rid of max rate calculator, put down the next blueprint I have, and this is very similar. Instead of medium miners, it's got large miners on either side. So let's tile this whole thing. The wonder of tileable blueprints, eh? All right, everything's powered. I think that's covered as much as it can be. I maybe actually could have gotten a little bit of a belt on the other side, huh? Let me just see. Did I do a very unfair comparison? Perhaps. All right. Let's make sure these belts have been saturated as much as they're going to. Check the production statistics. 41,000 compared to 47,000. So with the large miners, make it strictly worse. And that's because there's fewer rooms for belts, right? The medium miners were smaller, so you could get the belts closer together. All right, the time to beat is still 47, I believe. Now, I have a blueprint here that might look familiar to you. This is a kind of accepted or standard blueprint for the vanilla game, right? Because it's using these medium miners. And they reach across to get the belts. It wouldn't work if we use small miners at all. And there's really no way to use small miners in here to make this smaller. But anyways, we could tile this up. And the issue here is that if you're doing an idea like this, it gets very difficult, or it's impossible with these miners to have balanced lanes on this belt, because the miners pointing up or down are always going to go, I believe, on the right lane of the belt. Even if I were to balance this out like something like so. How do I get the green belt there? If I were to do something like so, both of these miners would be outputting on the same lane of the belt. It's a very annoying quirk of the lane mechanics in Factorio. So anyways, let's figure out, practically speaking, let's see, did I get all the miners? I think I did. I really got to make sure I cover this whole thing. And we might be mining out this patch a little bit. You know, it might not be a fair comparison, really. But I think I've already ordered these in order from good to bad, I think. We're testing that out for sure. But as if the numbers are getting higher, if our production is getting higher, then we know for sure that it's better than it came before. So yeah, you can see here the right side of the belt is saturated, and in fact these miners are not working. The vertical ones are not working at the end of the belt. Yeah. Twice as much ore is trying to get put on the right side. So it looks like everything's saturated. Let's look at the production. And 50,000 per minute is still significantly better. Well, would we say it's significantly better than 47,000 per minute? Not sure, but it is better. So we have a new winner. Let's move on to some things that you can only do in Nullius, because that last blueprint was a vanilla blueprint, essentially. It uses these green belts so you could get more throughput, but still, you could do the same idea in vanilla. But now I have some that only work in Nullius because they take advantage of the large miners as well as the insane reach that these green undergrounds can achieve. So this is a really cool design. I think it's cool design. I made it, so I'm a little biased, I suppose. This is the basic idea. These large miners actually do output onto a specific belt. You can see that arrow points on the right lane. This arrow points on the, well, it's, you know, if you were to look at it upside down, it would be right. But the left lane of the belt going upward. So this is actually a totally balanced belt of ore coming out. And we could tile this up like so. And then that leaves enough room for some other shenanigans here for this little grouping. Again, it's a balanced belt. So let's tile this all over the place and then see how we are doing. And again, the time to beat, or the rate to beat, is 50. Let's see here. It looks like we deleted that. Okay, 50,000 per minute. And this pattern is what I want to use here. And it looks like that lines up. All right. Now, some things to note is that a lot of these belts are emptier than other belts. However, none of them are fully saturated. So this is about as large of a field as it's going to get on my playthrough. And I believe sandstone is at 200%. This is like a railroad. So I believe sandstone is at 200% size. So this blueprint works pretty well with fields of that size. So none of these belts are saturated. Let's look at the production. Almost 60,000, possibly 60,000 is basically exactly. I'm not sure if it rounds up or down or whatever. But right around 60,000, which is significantly better. So yes, very proud of this design, but wait, we're not done. It looks cool too with the power pole situation. I guess some people might call that mildly unsatisfying. It doesn't doesn't tile perfectly, but I think it's pretty cool. It could tile perfectly. I think you could place it so that it would tile perfectly. All right. Every belt there was saturated. I got one more for you. And this one just looks cool, right? This is the basic tile. Takes advantage of the large miner. It actually doesn't take advantage of the large miners. There's going to be one more for you that I didn't even consider with the medium miners. I'll check that out in a second. But this one tiles up like this, and then we can tile it sideways. And all of these belts are different. It's only possible because of the ridiculous reach that those green belts give us. So let's see here. That covered everything, right? Surely it did. Surely it did. And don't call me Shirley. All right. The final scrapping copy paste I have is, let's see, is it that? That should work just fine. Excellent. So these belts are not going to be saturated. There you go. Yes. So this blueprint, you'll notice none of them are close to being completely saturated, which is good because that means this could support a larger or a taller field at least, which is fantastic. Let's look at the production, and you'll see we are right at 59,000. Possibly it's similar to before, possibly at 60,000. I think the only reason it's lower is because we've mined out the edges, possibly, so we're getting fewer miners in there. I think this might actually use more empty space, so we might not be getting as many miners in this field. But I like this one a lot because it can support an even larger field. So that's my favorite so far. Let me know what you guys think, and I do have one more for you after a short cut. Okay, so I have one more for you. This is the large mining that we ended on a minute ago. And now we have one with the large miners that looks something like that. It has enough room for lights, and these belts are right next to each other, so it could look pretty cool. Let's check it out, see if this actually beats the large miners that we have here. I suspect it might. I want to make sure I cover the whole thing. We need this to be a fair fight. No missing little bits on the edge here. All right, we're connected to power. And now I have this deal right here. That certainly covers everything. And the sandstone is being disposed of. That looks pretty darn good. Yeah? It's a thing of beauty. Let's see what the production is. 59,000! Same with the large miners. Interesting, huh? This is probably cheaper. Probably, well, it does use more underground, of these amazing underground belts. It uses more miners, but less than twice as many miners. So the large miners are a little over twice as expensive as the medium miners. So it's really hard to say. I definitely like this option, and I like the large mining option. I suppose it's easier for bots to put down the large miners, isn't it? Let's see. How much stuff is in here? About 400 miners, 500 undergrounds, lights and power poles. And this is the large mining setup. And if I try to reach the same amount, 400 undergrounds, 260 miners, and just a little fewer lights and power poles. Similar, though. So yeah, up to you, I guess. Matter of opinion. Let me know if there's a reason to use these large miners versus the medium miners. But I'll save both blueprints for myself, and this was enlightening for me. Hope it was enlightening for you, and I'm excited to have this blueprint book. I suppose I can delete all the blueprints that I didn't like and didn't want to use. But that's going to do it for me. Hope you enjoyed, and I'm excited to use these blueprints in my Nullius playthrough. Y'all take care.